Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to our second episode of Our 4 Cents Worth. I'm Nick Iacobucci, happily joined by Debbie D'Angelo, and instead of doing a movie review this time, we're going to give you something new. We're going to give you a current event, a gender topic, and a pet peeve. And we're going to try and keep these within like 5 minutes, just because YouTube says we can't make one longer than 15 minutes. So,
and keep in mind that my opinion is weighted 3 cents worth and his would be 1.
If she says so, I guess. That can be a gender issue for another
right
show.
There.
How about that?
Yeah.
So, okay, our first current event is going to be, is it Penn State University or Pennsylvania Scandal University?
Yeah.
We're going to cover the Joe Paterno / hierarchy of the Penn State Jerry Sandusky scandal. And I want to say right off the bat, it's not just Joe Paterno. There's Graham Spanier, who was the president, the senior vice president, Gary Schultz, the athletic director, Tim Curley, and football coach, Joe Paterno. And we all have come to realize that the former head of the FBI has done a very in-depth investigation, and it has come to light that they've known more about this than they've ever led on to. And without further ado, we'll let you start with your thoughts and opinions.
Well, I think just the release of that report has unleashed fury like we didn't even see with the Sandusky verdict. You know, people were divided, but I think there's still some controversy and some ambiguity as to did he really do it. You know, there are a lot of people talking that way, especially a lot of supporters of the university.
Right.
But now with Penn State's independent review, that has been in and of itself pretty harsh.
Absolutely.
You know, I think his last name was Free.
Yeah, I think it's Louis Free, is the former director of the FBI.
And that was their own pick. It was their independent review, and it was pretty harsh and brutal. Yeah. And I think it really maybe swayed some people who were on the fence. As to what the fate should be of Sandusky and how the involvement of Joe Paterno.
Well, for me, the thing that bothers me the most about this is I really wasn't on the fence. I really thought that there was no way this could have been going on right under his nose without something coming to light to him.
I agree.
Now, what we do know for sure now, the facts of the matter are that this went on for 14 years, and they actually went out of their way to bury this for 14 years. The electronic email trail has been between the 4 men that I mentioned. They called this the humane way to deal with Jerry Sandusky. And the part that really bothers me more than anything is they referred to his escapades or whatever, his molestation, as
rapes, as I call
his guests. They said, if you're going to have guests at the school, please keep that to your personal life and outside of school grounds. I don't know how these men could have looked themselves in the mirror every day and thought of a child victim of molestation as a guest of Jerry Sandusky.
In the name of football.
Yeah.
That's what really irritates me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that so many people turned a blind eye so as not to sully the reputation of the football coach, the players, and the team, while allowing a great travesty to occur. Not just mentioning that it's a crime, but brutal rape of children. And in fact, there were some janitors who witnessed some of these crimes, and one of them was a Korean War veteran who said he had never witnessed anything more brutal in his entire life.
And that's
he was
war
traumatized by it. Now, again, these people didn't come forward because they were afraid they were going to lose their jobs in the great hierarchy and political scheme of what was going on. And I have a compassion for people who are low-level employees thinking, I'm going to be up against a university, what can I do? On the other hand, we're not talking about somebody stealing pencils out of the supply closet.
Absolutely.
We're talking about people violating children and committing a crime, a heinous crime. And so I struggle with the people who saw it at all levels and turned a blind eye.
Well, I'll tell you another thing, too. I just read in one of the articles that there was a person in the Catholic Church, one of the people of the Archdiocese in Philadelphia, who got convicted and sentenced because he let a known pedophile priest around children, and that was basically allowing it to happen. I don't think what we are listening to or what we're hearing now for the first time about Joe Paterno and these other people, you know, 2 of these guys are actually up on federal charges of perjury and allowing, you know, molestation to happen with their knowing. And I don't, and in my opinion, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Paterno family, but at this point, he's lucky he passed away.
That's what I was thinking.
He's lucky he passed away because this is, his reputation is forever scarred, and I don't think anybody's ever going to think of Joe Paterno as the winningest coach in college football. They're just going to think of somebody that condoned and let allow let children allow it to be raped.
Well, I realize we have to wrap this up here, but quickly, what are your thoughts on the 7-foot statue of Paterno?
I'm glad you said that, because I think there's two things that should happen. They should either bomb it with grenades and let it be dust, or I wish if he would have lived that they could have taken it down, melted it, and made the bars to keep him in his cell out of his statue, because if the man lived, he should be sitting in a jail cell, because there's nothing about this man to commend or respect or anything.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was just as culpable for this, for the cover-up. And I thought about this long and hard with the statue because of the longevity of his career and all his successes. However, he put that above and beyond the safety and the welfare of children, and for that reason, I think it needs to come down.
And my final thought on this is there's a collegiate coach, I can't remember which one, he coaches one of the college football teams, whether it's Florida State,
friend of his.
Florida State, or one of the Florida schools, and he said, take the statue down because you have 100,000 people going to this every week to these football games, and as soon as they look at that statue, that's exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking of this scandal.
And that was a good friend and colleague of his who thinks that way.
And thinking nothing else. You know, and that's a very, very valid point. But
so on one thing we agree. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Now the next one is the gender topic. And this one I think we're going to disagree on this one, because we're going to say the age-old question of, is it more painful for a woman to give birth to a child or for a man to get kicked in the
genitals,
in the genital area, and
in the groin?
And I'm going to start by saying it has to be getting kicked in the nads. That has to just be, with the exception of it takes a long time to give birth to a child, and I'll give them that. But you know, women, they, you know, the thing about it with me is every time I'm in a movie and a guy gets kicked in the balls, every woman's like. And every guy's like, oh, you know, and I think they just.
Oh, I'm sure it must hurt. I've witnessed it, but let me ask you this. Okay, we're talking about somebody accidentally getting kicked in the groin, right? We're not talking about somebody who's on a motorcycle and it's an accident, or somebody that takes a bat, or no Lorena Bobbitt or anything like that. We're talking about, right? Okay, so let me just ask you, do you know what an episiotomy is?
No, I don't. That's a long word.
Okay,
please explain.
Do you know where your perineum is?
No.
Okay.
It sounds painful,
It's an area of skin and muscle between your genitals and your rectum.
Okay.
Same place for women, between the birth canal and the rectum.
So they call that that's called the grundle.
It's called the perineum. And during childbirth, often, and the majority of the time, a woman ends up with an episiotomy, which is where the doctor takes a pair of scissors without anesthesia and cuts the skin into the muscle layer to make sure that there's enough room for the woman to give birth, or if she looks like she's going to tear. Okay, that's just one small part of childbirth. She's been in labor for maybe up to 2 days. There's a risk of hemorrhage, a risk of infection, a blood clot that can be thrown to the lungs. Then the poor woman has the episiotomy. After giving birth, she then is not only thoroughly exhausted, but has got to be up to feed this baby. Her perineum looks like somebody did take a baseball bat to it.
I'm just glad I don't ever have to get faced with giving birth. I'll tell you this, though. You don't have to take a baseball bat, get hit with a baseball, steel-toed boots. You just got to graze those things down there. I mean, just graze them a little bit. And they're
What would you choose? To have your perineum cut with a pair of scissors and no anesthesia, or to be kicked in the groin?
You know, I'm going to answer that question with my statement, and that statement is this. She's over here saying all this stuff about how much pain it is for women to go through childbirth, but women give birth to children, and then like a year later, they're always like, you know, I'd like to have another child. But I'm asking you people out there, how many times have you ever heard a guy say, you know, it's really been a while. You know, it's been a while. I haven't been kicked in the balls. Can you do me a favor? Can you just haul off and kick me between the legs, please? Because I really miss it.
You know why? Because women are willing to sacrifice for the sake of themselves and their spouse to have a family. Women are willing to go that extra mile. A guy's not.
You know, I'm agreeing with her, but I just love to disagree with her on this one.
When I first heard that statement, I almost fell off
It is a good one, though. Any comments below if you agree with me on that one? How many times have you ever heard a guy say, God, it's been so long, please kick me in the balls
again?
Ladies,
let's get it together.
I miss it. Okay, this is going to take us to our third and final topic, and this is a pet peeve. And what did we come up with our pet peeve?
Well, you have so freaking many that we just had to put our little finger in a hat and draw one out.
But we came up with,
it comes to the way you drive.
With road rage among men. Like, it always seems like guys are always more apt to have road rage. You never hear of a woman.
Irritable. Well, women can fly off the handle too, but normally when I see somebody really going at it, using hand gestures, swearing,
It's always
being
a
an
guy.
aggressive driver.
It's always a guy.
usually a guy. And here is a prime example.
They're doing it to me personally. That's the only thing I can tell you is that why does somebody,
they're cutting you off.
why does somebody, when you're on the interstate, why do they pull over from the slow lane to the fast lane? You know, because there's somebody in front of them, they're going 55 and the person behind them is going 56 and they got to pull over in front of me and I'm going 75. I hope there's no law enforcement officers watching this. But you know, I usually go 75. My car runs good at 75 miles an hour. Now, why do you get in front of somebody and then you don't expect any animosity? You don't expect any, no, that's perfect reason for animosity. Let me tell you what. And well, we can't get into my descriptive terminology.
It's colorful.
It's a lot of colorful metaphors. We'll say that. But on a whole, like I don't understand when I'm driving. The thing that gets me is it always seems like people are deliberately ignorant. I think I use that term a lot. They're deliberately ignorant. It's like if you would just look around and see that there's somebody flying up behind, well, I'll wait for them to go by and then I'll move around. I mean, do you disagree with me on this one?
You know what? I agree with everything you're saying. People can be very in their own little world when they're driving. Some people are just oblivious. Some people are just stupid. And other people, they don't know how to drive. But that doesn't give you the right or permission to exhibit road rage, to fly off the handle.
It makes me feel so much better, though.
Of course it does, but guess what? In your ire, you can have a lapse in judgment, perhaps do something that you would not normally do, an error in judgment. You could cause an accident,
or makes me feel good.
Be like an accelerant on a fire, triggering that person to do something even more outrageous.
Well, how about this? Because I've often said this, like the person that cuts me off or something, they got like baby seats in there. They got their family in there. Why are you even cutting me off? I mean, shouldn't you be a little more cautious or a little more careful if you have your entire family in the car? Normally, it's just me. You know what I mean? I don't have a family, so I usually am a little more lackadaisical with the safety measures than the next person.
You don't have a family because you have no sympathy towards childbirth. It's all about getting kicked in the groin. But I digress.
Well, I hope if I get in an accident that I don't take the steering column to the groin. How about that? I hope that doesn't happen.
But you know what? I agree with you. There are enough things out there to make your blood pressure just skyrocket. But they aren't doing it to you personally. It's not like they're saying, oh, here comes Iacobucci. Let me try to really tick him off. Let's see if we can get him really peeved.
Now, haven't you told me once before that your husband is not maybe the exact same way as I am, but he's
not to the extreme to you, but he, of course, just did you see what that guy just did to me?
It's like they're doing it to me on purpose.
He's not doing it to you. He doesn't even know you.
But I'll tell you what, it is enough to just set me off. I mean, I just think that the thing that always bothers me too is
when they're texting or on a cell phone.
I think that's for another show.
Yeah.
I think that one's for another show. But the point I was getting at is what always seems to bug me more than anything is the person that gets in front of me, that holds me up. When I look in my rearview mirror, there's no one behind me. They could have just let me go by, and then they could have moved over and passed them at their leisure, and it wouldn't have mattered. You know, they could have taken 20 minutes to pass this person, but it just, and I'm using this as a specific example, of course, but
you know, you're the master of sarcasm. You can still use your colorful language and, you know, say whatever it is you want, but I don't think you really have to blow a gasket. I don't think you have to pound on the steering wheel. I don't think you have to use hand gestures. It's so much more fun. Because then you're taking your attention off the road and really now you're becoming a hazardous driver. Not to mention the stress and the toll it takes on your body and your passenger.
But I would always,
because I'm sweating it out when he's white knuckling it.
One of my famous sayings is that I'm always acutely aware of my surroundings, and I try to live by that. I try to make sure there's no one around, that when I'm passing somebody or when I'm on the road, and I try to not use my cell phone. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I don't use my cell phone, but I don't text while I drive. But I'm always trying to be 100% aware of my surroundings. And if I'm driving and I see somebody in the rearview mirror coming up at a high rate of speed, I'm not going to get in front of them. I'm not going to cut them off, even when it's just me in the car. Let them go by.
You don't instigate.
Yeah, let them go by. But I react. Yes, absolutely. I might not instigate, but I react.
He overreacts.
Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap this up. I don't. Once again, this show welcomes any and all kinds of comments. So if you have any comments on any of the 3 topics, please feel free to put them in the comments below and let us know what you think.
If you have any ideas for topics too, we're pretty much sticking to current events, gender issues, and pet peeves.
Anything you guys throw out there, we'll be glad to try and tackle it in another show. We're going to try and do one of these maybe once a week going forward. So.
And remember, it's just our opinion.
Yes, just our humble opinion, and we thank you.
3 cents, 1 cent.
Her opinion, not my opinion. Okay, and we're going to wrap this up because I think we're right around the 15-minute mark. So we're going to say thank you for watching and hope to see you soon.